Welcome on this Saturday afternoon. Special series that we're going to start right here, right today. This is the first of hopefully many Meeple Syrup short stacks. Sen, why don't you tell everybody what's going on and introduce our lovely guest?
Okay, well, a short stack to us anyways. You know how we stack up pancakes and pour maple syrup over it? Well, we're just going to have a little stack. And a short stack for us is going to really deal with a very small issue, or in this case, we're going to talk about one person, one design, one game, and really maybe focus on some Kickstarter stuff, some stuff that is timely, and we'll just have these at random intervals. We're not scheduling them definitely for Saturday at 4:40 p.m. every week. That's not the intention. The intention is that Jesse and myself and Erica can just kind of jump on, do these things whenever, and hopefully if you're at your computer or on your phone, you can just tune in and watch, and then we'll upload the episodes to YouTube for those of you who don't get to see them. So today's first short stack is brought to us by Benjamin Yamada. Benjamin is a new-ish designer. You might not know the name, but very soon you probably will. He worked on Way of the Fighter from Ninja Division. He is also for the Crucible, which is a fan-made supplement for Sentinels of the Multiverse, which I hear he loves with a passion.
The Cauldron.
The Cauldron. Why did I call it? That's a cool name, though.
It is a cool name.
I'm going to keep that for another game. So
Yeah.
The Cauldron. And then also, now what we're going to talk about today specifically in relation to our show from a couple weeks ago on translating video games to the tabletop, Benjamin's the designer behind a much-loved video game property franchise called Sonic the Hedgehog. And his game from Shinobi 7 called Battle Racers is coming out very shortly. In fact, is it on Kickstarter right now?
It is right now. We have 7 days left.
1 week left to back Battle Racers, Sonic the Hedgehog, Battle Racers from designer Benjamin Yamada and publisher Shinobi 7. And it has all the things that you'd think of when you think of a Sonic game in terms of the miniatures. So, you know, Tails and Knuckles, Amy, Eggman, all those. Benjamin, can you tell us a little bit about the game and how you translated the experience of running at like high speeds, high velocities, collecting rings and all that kind of stuff, and took that from the hyperkinetic arena that is video gaming and brought it into the sort of, you know, slow and methodical tabletop world?
So, I mean, coming to Sonic, like, I try to remember what I love about Sonic, because it's kind of like, what is the essence of the video game, right? So if you look at every game, for me, as an essence, so for me, you can take something from that you want to recreate. So if you look at a game like Sonic, whatever game you play with just Sonic in the title, it is going to be about speed. Right, it's going to be about going fast, probably going too fast. So that was kind of like the premise. And I was kind of tasked to design the game. So the way it happened is Shinobi 7 secured the license from Sega, and then they asked a few designers to pitch a design for that license. So I went in and think about, okay, I used to play Sonic on my Game Gear and my Mega Drive, and so I was trying to remember that. I did a bit of research in terms of like how the modern Sonic changed, and it's really about speed. So then, thinking about board game design, I was like, how do I make a game which kind of translate that? Also, like, it's a platformer. There isn't many platformer at the board game in the board game. Like, if you look at it, I don't know any other game that tried to replicate a platform game, basically. Mm-hmm. And then also thinking about the game was meant to be for a family game, like 9+, so it needed to be accessible. An IP which is both loved by adults but still very much an IP for kids. I wanted, like, if a kid take the game and play it, I wanted to enjoy it as well. So those were the parameters, if you want. And so the first thing that came to me to say, okay, it needs to be fast. The gameplay needs to be fast as well. That's where when you play card in Sonic, everything is play the card put the card face down and then reveal at the same time, and then everybody does an action. So you don't have to wait for everybody's turn. Everything goes pretty fast. But I wanted, like, as a designer, I like puzzling. I like board game that challenge you and make you think in terms of, like, make you plan and make you react to different situations. So that's why, like, I came up with trying to make the board a long track where people will have to basically, like, figure out the best way to go. One of the key things when you look at Sonic design philosophy, like the Sonic, like the classic Sonic 1, 2, and 3, it's all about you have 3 paths to finish your level. So if you look at a blown out version of a Sonic level, you'd have 3 paths. You have an easy path that doesn't give you a lot of things, and then you have a harder path which give you more ring, and the hardest path which will give you a lot of ring, but then you'd have to go fast, so you have to jump. Timing is more important. So what people won't see that in the board game when they see it, I try to recreate in the Sonic board game. You always have 3 paths, and one path is the most rewarding, but also the most dangerous, and then you have 2 other paths. So try to replicate that was kind of my mind. So people, when they unconsciously when they play the game, they feel like they are playing. It's close to Sonic. And then in the design of each characters, try to really, like, research what makes this character unique and try to replicate that in the game as well. So Sonic Tails can fly, basically, in a sense. And then you would have, like, for example, like Amy, which is the girlfriend of Sonic. She's very good. She's always chasing Sonic. So her power is, like, she goes faster when she's behind people and trying to chase them. So try to kind of give a lot of flavor to each character, to each track. So people who play it really have that feeling. But also, like, so one of the important things is actually translating video game to board game is kind of my shtick. I don't know why. I guess it's because I love video games. And try to make it so it's a different experience. So it's different enough from the video game. Because, like, the question is, like, why would I play this when I can play Sonic, right?
Right.
So, like, being able to answer that question correctly. So for Sonic, the board game is easier because it's a multiplayer experience. Sonic is by essence a single player experience. So when you play the board game, well, it's a multiplayer experience that you can share with your family. Also, when you're older than me, maybe, and your reflex are not as good, it's a more even playing field.
Right. And it's probably a game that you can play with family that has multiple different age generations between them, but all are interested. Some might not, but you can all play together. So, and I like that.
Yeah.
Zach asked a really critical question here, and you've kind of gone over the gameplay, but what is the simple, boiled down core mechanism of your game?
It's
is it dice playing?
It's card play.
Okay, card play.
Simultaneous card play.
Okay.
Right.
Excellent. So using simultaneous card play, is it programming like movement, or is it?
So it's simultaneous card play. In a nutshell, it's pretty simple. You have a hand of 4 cards. Which allow you to do. Each card will allow you to do 2 things. One is an action. So the action can be increase your speed, decrease your speed, change lane, basically, spin, because it's Sonic, and then
yes.
Right, and then you will have a movement, and the movement in Sonic is mandatory. You have to do your movement. So each character will have a speed, basically, which is more or less like your momentum, but it's a bit of a complicated word, so we went for speed. And the idea is, like, each turn you will move your speed, whether you want it or not. So that's kind of like where it carries the feeling of playing Sonic. Because in Sonic, I don't know if you played Sonic like I do, but I always go very fast, and sooner or later I hit a wall or I hit a bad nick because I went too fast. And so controlling that speed is quintessential. So when you play Sonic the board game, it's the same thing. You can increase your speed, you can go really fast, but you would have to move that speed at every turn. And if you go too fast, you might encounter, like, a platform or a bad guy or even another racer. So everybody play their card face down at the same time. You reveal there is a number on the card. The highest goes first. So it's very easy in terms of turn order. You resolve that action, and then you go again. And each turn you also draw a card from a choice of 4 cards. So that's why, like, there's a bit of programming of like, okay, this is what I want to do next turn. I'm going to want to move there, then I'm going to want to change lane, then I'm going to want to jump, then I'm going to want to spin. And so like you do have to like, there's a very light element of programming, but definitely like a player that is good at planning ahead would be very good at Sonic.
Excellent.
But if you're not, you will have fun. Like if you play with Kid, I try with Kid and they bump into each other and stuff, but it's fun. Simple. I'm going to play like God, and they get a bit frustrated, but then they're like, okay, I'm going to move and I'm going to hit you, and so it has like kind of like you can play. It can be quite brain. You move like five action in advance. It's the best way to play, but it's also the hardest. The one of the element also is that the whole of the like damaging and other racers, when they damage them, all the rings kind of jump around, so you can capture their rings. So one of the big things that people talk, for example, is like technically it's a racing game, but arriving first does not make you win. The goal of the game is not to arrive first, which is very counterintuitive. I get it. The goal of the game is to get the most rings. And so, but if you are first in every track, you will get the best placement. Like if you arrive first in the track, nobody have taken the ring before you, so you have more choices and you can decide to go for the most rings. So being first means you have basically first dib and you can get more rings.
Right.
Sorry. No. Somebody's knocking at my door. I think my daughter wants to see that. It's okay. And you have and the same way, like if you're first during the whole game, then you will have collected a lot of rings and probably will be the winner anyway. It is possible that you are the first racer during the whole game, and at the last track you make a mistake and you get hit, lose all your ring, and then everybody behind you basically take your ring and pass you, and then you could lose. So there's a very much about the risk management element to the game.
Right.
It's not a long game. It's like, I think like people who know the game can play it in 30 minutes. If you play with adults that want to think a lot more, it might take 60 minutes tops with 5 players. But overall, it's not a particularly long game.
Okay, great. Bibo is she's letting us know that thinking ahead is critical. With enough planning, you can really crush this game and do really well. That it's like Get Bit with racing programming and 8 numbers instead of 64. So that really clarifies to me kind of what you're going for. When you said you can get ahead, but when you're ahead, then you're more likely to get hit. And when you get hit, you lose your rings, and then other people can scoop up your rings. I think that's a really neat sort of risk management, push-pull of your luck, right? It's like,
completely.
I'm going to race ahead, pick up all the stuff, but with some bad planning, I could get stuck and then become a victim of getting knocked by the other players, losing all the things.
And it's a catch-up mechanism as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you do it not at the very end, but during the game, it's a catch-up mechanism.
Do you, in the playable characters, is it just the 4 playable characters, Tails, Knuckles, Amy, and Sonic, or are there other playable characters?
So Eggman is also a playable character in the game, in the base game, and then there is like a lot of basically everybody in the cast of Sonic is represented, and so like our stretch goal in the Kickstarter is like you can unlock a lot of extra characters. So one thing that I haven't mentioned is there's also a boss mode in the game, so you can play with the boss. So Eggman can be a racer or it can be a racer. Then what's going to happen is like he has his own deck of cards and we act like a very simple AI. Saying AI is it's a big word. And basically he's going to act every turn, and if you have to arrive before him, and you can also destroy him for rings.
Oh, well, that makes
that
sense.
makes the game harder. So if you want to play 2 players, the boss mode is kind of recommended because it makes the game more interesting. 5-player boss mode is not recommended because that would be completely chaotic.
Right.
But that'd be fun too.
No, but that makes a lot of sense. So instead of having like a 3rd and 4th player that you run as a dummy, have something that's actually competing against you in the boss mode, and really that does fit well, obviously, with the theme, of course.
Actually, and the funny thing is that during the Kickstarter, like, people say, "But can you play Sonic solo?" And I never thought about it because I don't play solo game. It never occurred to me. And then I was like, yes, you can. You can completely play Sonic solo. So since like the beginning of the Kickstarter, I've been thinking of like how to make that interesting. Because you could play very simply, just solo with a boss and then try to gather the most rings, which is kind of probably like the default way of playing solo. I'm just thinking if there's a way I could make that more interesting. I haven't completely figured that out yet. But by default,
that's what the delivery time is for, right? Between funding and your Kickstarter delivery. What are some other stretch goals that you have on the Kickstarter?
So on the Kickstarter right now, the stretch goals, or let me pull the page. I should probably have been ready for that question. So currently the stretch goals, the one that we have found already, where we have already unlocked, we have Shadow. So Shadow is, very famous Sonic character. He's not just a racer, he's also a boss, and he comes with more tracks. So there is there is like Eggman is basically the boss in the base game, and then there is 3 expansions which are both a boss, some racetrack, and one racer. So Shadow is already unlocked. So if you pledge for $100, you get him. There is a token bag to put because the badniks and the rocks are like tokens, so you can put this token into the bag to draw them randomly. And then there is 2 characters. There's Blaze and Espio. So Blaze is like a kind of a fairy cat, and then Espio is like a ninja. I don't know what kind of animal he is, but yeah.
I'm sure it doesn't matter.
And so,
right now.
things we haven't unlocked yet are like they're going to be like replacement of the token rings by plastic rings.
Right.
Then there is Silver, which is another character. Stick, which is another character. Then there's a big box to fit all that, and then there's Cream and Cheese, which is currently our top pledge. But there will be there's more after that. But that's where we are at today.
Yeah, I think is Espio a gecko?
I think you're right.
A lizard, I think, if I remember correctly.
He's a lizard.
Yeah.
And
what kind of lizard? Oh, or maybe a chameleon?
He's a chameleon.
There we go. Okay.
He's a ninja, so he's a chameleon. That makes sense.
That does make sense. Right, and then Silver and Sticks, I see, Cream and Cheese. Lots of good stuff. Yeah. And are the miniatures pre-painted?
The miniatures are pre-painted.
Wow.
Yeah, that's why I think there's a bit of sticker shock when people look at the game because it's $50 for the base pledge and $100 for the base pledge with all the freebies. But really, it's because the miniatures are actually quite big and they're pre-painted. So
right, so they're not like 28mm Warhammer scale. They are quite large.
Right, and they're all unique. And like a lot of the Kickstarter, they can say like we give you a ton of plastic, but they're the same mold. So once, like in the industry, like if you make a mold, then you can make 100 of them. It doesn't cost you much. So for Sonic, the fact that they are both, each one is unique, and then they're painted. That's why it's kind of a deluxe product, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of the IP type of games go as well as Jesse and I work on them all the time, is that they want to not only get the fans of gaming, they want to get the fans of the IP who would just buy it to have those cool miniatures, right? Yeah. So,
but it was important for me that it was like the game will be, could be as good as a miniature, I guess, if I may say. People would be the judge of that when I tried.
Excellent. Brittany Bebo is saying that they're 40 years on a 28mm base, so they are legitimately gigantic.
Yes.
Which is a good thing. And in this kind of game, you kind of want that chunky feel of moving stuff around. What's next for you, Benjamin? What do you think? Working on other IP-related games or video games that come to the tabletop?
Yeah, in terms of personally, so I'm in discussion for work on another IP. It's not a video game this time, but I can't talk about it, obviously.
Yeah.
And otherwise, like on personal, I have a lot of things. I'm working on an XCOM-ish type board game, and also on a RTS type board game.
Okay, so lots of stuff.
Yeah, I am all about. I don't know. Yeah, I love my video games. Also, I'm also working on a SimCity version of a board game. But I always try to bring something new to the table. Like when I did when I did, so for Sonic, it's kind of like, it was kind of really the opportunity for my previous game, for Way of the Fighter, when I was going to do something akin to fighting games. I wanted to bring something different to the table. Like, I have great respect for Yumi and Battleground. They're a very great game. I was just trying to bring something which was different in terms of the gameplay and how it brings the feeling of playing Street Fighter and Fatal Fury from the old days. And so, you know, whether I succeeded or not is like, again, that's for the player to stay. But I had a great fun doing it, at least.
Yeah, it looks great. Jesse, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. I was muted myself for a while, but you know,
Okay.
that's tradition.
Do you have any questions?
I don't think so. I mean, you covered sort of everything that I was curious about, which was some of the, like, going into some of the challenges of adapting video games to a board game environment and discussing some of the kinds of things that you do to make it worth playing the board game instead of the video game. I suppose one thing I am wondering about, you talked about sort of a lot of your strategies and your thought process. What do you think the biggest challenge that you had in the design of this project was? What was the biggest challenge in bringing Sonic to the kitchen table?
I think the biggest one is that this IP is like really like, the fan for this IP are huge, and they are, I would say, like, it's, yeah, I had to be very careful about how I handled it, like in terms of like how I represented the characters and everything. Sonic fan base is very fond of their IP, and I think it's true for a lot of video games. But I think Sonic is very special to many people.
Mm-hmm.
So like being able to translate that, I literally like spent like hours and hours bringing myself up to speed with 21st century in order to like make sure that this, like, the fan would feel like that I have respected the IP, and that it's not just like, you know, I'm going to take a design that I had and slap in some stuff and make it look like Sonic. It wasn't that. This was
Right.
purpose made for that IP. And I think that was like the most difficult things. I mean, like, we can talk about like game design things, like, you know, bringing the speed element to the game, but that wasn't very hard. Like, once I got that feeling, it came pretty naturally. But then when I started to design each character, and there are a lot of them, making sure that they were not just, you know, felt like tacked on, but actually bring the IP to bear, and also like show the respect that I have and Shady7 have for the IP. That was like the most, like, honestly, like when we launched at the Kickstarter, I was pretty terrified because I mean, I follow the Sonic community, and they will go to the defense of their IP like with strength if they need to, but everybody seems to like it, and I was very happy about it. I was very pleased to see that people like could feel that the effort I had put into the product, and we're happy with the end result. So that was like made me really happy. Like, all these hours I spent watching Sonic videos and reading the wiki paid off, I guess.
That's great.
Yeah.
Jesse and I do the exact same thing.
Yeah.
What would your dream video game IP be? If there's one game that you could take and translate, what would that be?
Video game only?
Yeah.
Mario?
Ah. So on the flip side, I see. And it's funny because you say that, and when I think about the people who are avid Sonic defenders, right?
Yeah.
Sonic fans, they're the people who were really very much, you know, Sega is better than Nintendo. I'm interested
Well, I
that you're
think
playing both sides of the field there, Benjamin.
I was born. I'm French. In French, we didn't have that. It was like the advertisement and everything was very different. So there was conflict between Sega and Nintendo, but it wasn't as pronounced as, like, you know, Sega can what Nintendo don't, or something like that. I forgot like, it wasn't as brutal as in the US, the console war, I guess. So, but I'm personally, like, I'm actually, if you want to know, I'm a PC gamer first and foremost,
Right.
and console mostly from childhood, and I had both, and I love them all. And I think, like, now that I've made, like, honestly, like, if you had asked me like a year ago, I may have said Sonic as well as Mario. But now that I've done Sonic, I'm thinking, well, if I can do Mario, then I'm done.
Yeah, you kind of hit the holy grail.
But that would be, it's like likeliness of that happening is pretty low.
Maybe. So what about PC game? What PC game would you turn into a board game?
I mean, honestly, like I'm a 4X kind of guy, but this has been done so many times that's it's already kind of. I think the genre actually of adapting games to board games, especially turn-based games, has been kind of like it's kind of already filled with. I don't know that there's a lot of gaps there. Like even now, like even newer game get adapted very quickly to board game. So
right.
I think it'd be hard.
What if we open the question up to any IP? Because you started by saying just video games, but now what IP?
The dream IP for me would be Ghibli, like anything.
Oh yeah, for sure. That makes total sense.
Yeah, that would be like that. Then the pressure would be really on. Like if Sonic was on, like Ghibli would be even harder. Oh yeah, it's cute. I have a 3-year-old daughter, so like she will love, like she's gonna love Sonic, but she will be like she has a lot of Totoro stuff, and like if I could make a board game about Totoro, I have no idea what I would do, but I would love to try.
Right? Who wouldn't? That'd be great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Benjamin, for popping on the short stack today. We're going to have a few more of these. Well, I mean, whatever we can. We might have one coming up in a little bit, like next week maybe. And a lot of them will be in responses to people's immediate needs of Kickstarter promotion. But we're also going to just see if people just want to talk about stuff immediately right now, hot off the presses. This is a very important topic. I think that's what the short stacks are going to be for. So if you're looking for some of that kind of stuff, get to Jesse, get to myself, get to Erica, and we'll make it happen. Thank you very much for watching today. Jess, thanks for being able to run the con today. And thanks, Benjamin, for coming on the show. So for those of you who didn't hear, hopefully you've heard it already, but it's Battle Racers. Sonic the Hedgehog Battle Racers from Shinobi 7, developed by our friend here, Benjamin Yamada, and it is on Kickstarter right now. We've got 7 days left. It's funded. Let's push it up over the top, get some of those nice stretch goals, and we'll see you guys on Wednesday, if not before. All right? Oh, Monday, definitely there's some mail call stuff to read out, but we'll see you guys on Wednesdays for the main show. So thanks very much, and we'll see you in a bit. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.